Wind occupies the high step, the way seawater occupies an ocean trench, filling every hollow, chasm and blade of grass until even silence flutters. All summer, the wind had carried only dust across the country of the target clans. The shepherds counted 63 days without a cloud worth naming, 63 dawns when the sun rose already hard as hammered bronze. On the 64th morning, a thin girl named Oyun felt the wind change. She was 14, slight as a reed, but her shoulders had already squared into the pragmatic shape only drought grants. Since the rivers shrank, she had guided her clan's sheep halfway to the sky, chasing dew across the ragged backs of the Auroch Plateau. The flock's bells sounded dull, as if wool had grown inside the metal. That dawn, even the bells fell still. Oyun pressed a cracked palm to the ground, as her grandmother used to do while gauging weather in the marrow of stones, and felt a pulse. 1, 2, 3. Steady beats, so deep she half wondered if it was her own heart magnified by thirst. She whispered, "Drums." No one was there to hear except the sentinel eagles, yet the word tasted true. Legend said drums, older than bones, lay buried beneath the steppe, planted by a sky spirit so that earth could answer heaven. Each time the sky drummed thunder, the earth could drum back, and rain would arrive as truce gift. But the drums had slept generations. The drought suggested they had perhaps died. Oyun hurried the flock down slope, mind busy with stories her grandmother told around dung-fire embers. Stone herd gods, carved when the world's first animals agreed to let humans borrow their hides, waited beneath the grasses. They would not stir until Earth's own heartbeat called them. Thunder drums, the tales insisted, were that call. Bullheads stretched on ironwood hoops buried where green was once thickest. "Find a drum," grandmother had said while combing burrs from Oyun's hair, "and you have found a mouth with which to talk to gods." Grandmother herself had died 3 springs earlier, carried away by winter cough. The clan's elders, preoccupied with tallying each evaporating spring and debating whether to abandon ancestral pasture, barely noted one girl's tale of drums underfoot. So Oyun kept the heartbeat secret. Yet as morning brightened, she realized secrecy might be cowardice. If the stone herd gods could be woken and bargained with, maybe the clan's wells would refill. If not, her people would ride east in shame, leaving ancestor cairns to topple at the steps. She tethered the sheep inside a makeshift circle of thorn, whistled to Bayan, her one-eyed dog, and descended toward camp. A haze of cook smoke hovered over felt yurts, though water for stew was now measured in spoonfuls. The headman, Hakan, sat outside his ger, flensing a goat that had failed to survive noon heat. Behind him hung 30 such carcasses. Oyun swallowed. The clan had once been rich in hoofbeats. Now the herd decreased like shadow at sunset. Hakan's eyes glinted as she approached. "If you need feed, there is none left," he said without greeting. "I felt drums under the high ridge," she replied. "Grandmother's legends. Legends don't fatten ewes." He wiped his knife across dusty leggings. "Your duty is wool, not stories." Oyun might have retreated, but the earth's thudding still rolled through her bones. "The ground is speaking," she insisted. "Something wants to wake." Other adults gathered, her Aunt Narai with cracked lips, armor-maker Borjigin, whose forge lay cold because horses lacked strength to haul ore, and Kajgar, the story-keeper, whose age had made him all eyebrow and memory. Kajgar raised a trembling finger. "Let the child tell it. In old times, when the plateau baked, we petitioned the herd gods. Thunder above, drums below, then rain." Hakan spat iron-smelling goat blood. "Thunder! There is none." "No," Kajgar mused, "but maybe the drums are restless, alone." Silence rippled. The clan measured hope carefully these days, afraid it might evaporate too, but finally the headman shrugged. "Take whoever wishes to waste daylight." He jabbed his knife at Oyun. "If you dig up dust, do not bring it back to camp." Oyun bowed, then found only 2 volunteers, Khadgar and a boy her age, Temur, whose goats had starved first and whose parents had already left with another caravan. Hope costs least for those with nothing else. The three of them, plus Bayan the dog, climbed the Auric Ridge by noon. Each carried a mattock in a water skin containing less than a swallow. Hoyun led them to the knuckle of hillside where she had felt the beat. The ground looked ordinary sun-whitened grass curled like parchment. She knelt, listening. The pulse still thrummed, deeper now, 4 beats at a time like hooves beyond a horizon. Kadya tapped the soil with his cane. Here my father told of such trembling. We must dig. They scraped turf, tossing sod into brittle heaps. Down 1/2 metre, the mattock rang against something resonant. Timur knelt and brushed. A disc emerged, polished hardwood dark as liver, rimmed with copper studs, hide stretched so tight it glimmered. No roots penetrated its edge. The drum seemed to have slept untouched since the steppe first breathed. Thunder's wrath, resting in loose scarlet dirt, were 6 mallets, handles of tamarisks tipped with felted wool. Oyun's breath shook. She picked one mallet. It weighed more than shape suggested, as though crammed with memory. Will it wake them? Strike and learn, Temur said, voice raw. She stood upon the disc's centre, feet tingling. The mallet hovered above hide. She remembered scolding about frivolous noise, remembered drought-silent nights when children coughed for water. Then she let the mallet fall. Thumb! Sound neither high nor low, but everywhere at once surged from the drum, travelling through feet, chests, skulls, vanishing into distant corners of the plateau. Bayan yelped. Temur staggered. Khadgar raised his face to sun like a man smelling rain yet unshed. Again, the elder croaked. Oyun struck 4 more times, weaving the pulse she had earlier felt. The hillside answered. Grass parted along seams invisible seconds before. Soil shivered, then split as if unzipping itself. From the fractures rose shapes of grey-green stone. First a horn, then a brow broad enough to seat a full moon, then shoulders in which lichens scribbled old runes. A bull, but mountain large, emerged, stamping. Behind it rose a ram whose curling horns circled clouds. Next, a mare of igneous rock, ribs echoing the ridges of the plain. 6 beasts total, each the ideal of its species: bull, ram, mare, yak, goat, and camel. The totems of high steppean herders. Their hooves were not thunder. They were the bedrock rearranging itself. With every step, the sky dimmed as dust rose. Oyun and her friends retreated to a boulder, hearts colliding. Bayan tucked tail behind legs. The bull spoke first. Voice scraped from cavern walls. Who drums firstborn from sleep? Oyun's mouth dried further. Khadgar bowed, knee to earth. Stone fathers, forgive intrusion. Our children thirst. The bull's eyes glowed verdigris. Thirst is mortal's will. I unbalance it. Oyun realized the gods did not see with pity. They saw with equilibrium. The steppes ledger tallied hooves against grass, breath against cloud. Rain was not gift, but trade. She stepped forward, mallet still in hand. I am Oyun of the Targat. I drummed because the sky has forgotten its side of the bargain. Our wells crack, our sheep fall. I ask rain. At that moment she understood she was not merely asking, she was negotiating like her mother barters wool in winter market. So she lifted the mallet, set a simple heartbeat upon the buried hide, and let each pulse underline her words. The mare approached, mane a mesh of basalt filaments. Little drummer, rain costs. What have you to give? Temur whispered. We have nothing. Oyun disagreed. We have stories. She nodded at Khadgar. And we have guardianship. The drought has driven many clans to abandon these heights, but we still keep the plateau's tracks, still burn sheep dung so stars find their mirrors. Perhaps memory is worth water. The goat god snorted. Memory? We are memory's architects. Kajar lifted his cane. Even architects need witnesses, or their works turn to rubble. The stone beasts consulted in language of scraping tectonics. The sound reminded Uyun of glaciers grinding, but also of bones rolling in shaman rattles. When silence returned, the bull lowered its vast head so both eyes met Uyun. Rain for witness, yet witness must be renewed. Each drought cycle, your clan will drum us awake and recite what has transpired. A census of wind, a chronicle of hoofbeats, a tally of births and burials. You will keep the steps ledger in tale and in song, presenting it so the balance can be weighed. Oyun felt responsibility settle heavier than the mallet. We accept, but the yak god interjected. Voice like foghorn. One more term. The drummer must give something of her own. No trade is fair without personal stake. Oyun tried to think of possessions. A comb carved by her grandmother, a shell from River Delta, her only pair of unstained felt boots. None felt equivalent to clouds. Then she realized the value lay not in object, but use. My hearing, she said. Kaja gasped. She turned to him. What use is hearing? If our animals die, if our people scatter, I will give the gods my hearing, so long as drums remain my ears. She addressed the herd gods again. Take it, after rain arrives. Temur grabbed her sleeve. Oyun! She shook free. Bargains require addition. Refusal might forfeit every hope. The stone beasts chuffed approval. Struck, the mayor proclaimed. Let the sky respond. The bull reared, front hooves smashing the air. From the cracks created in nothingness spilled distant thunder. Clouds coagulated as if hidden behind a curtain now yanked open. Blue parched heavens turned slate within minutes. Wind whistled wetter, smelling of electricity and moss. Yet rain did not fall immediately. First the thunder above answered the thunder below, boom for boom. The disc under Oyun's feet vibrated, urging her to keep tempo. She drummed, slower, guiding conversation. Each stroke birthed a rumble overhead. At last a fat drop struck her cheek, then another. Soon thousands hammered the plateau. Stone herd gods stood immobile, letting water slick their flanks. Rivulets blackened channels carved by age. When the downpour achieved roar, the bull addressed Uyun a final time. Debt paid, hearing owed. The world's noises muted. She still heard the rain, but only through soles and fingertips, through the disc resonating against her bones. The field's lesser sounds, Temura shouting joy, Kajka sobbing, dog barking, muffled into velvet hush. She tested by calling to the boy. Lips moved, but her ears retrieved nothing. Panic prickled, then faded. She could still feel the drum's voice, intimately, vibrating secret corridors of being. The gods kept the bargain precisely. The stone herd gods sank back into their earthen beds, sleepy now that balance was restored. Grass folded over their backs as if grown instantly. Soon only wet soil and fresh puddles remained, plus the drum half dug. Rain poured all afternoon, turning gullies into newborn streams. Temur lifted Oyun, spinning until water sprayed like jewel beads. She read his elated mouth. We did it! She smiled, but pointed to her ear and shook head. Understanding shadowed his grin. His arms steadied her softly, expressing apology she could not hear, but felt. Khadgar embraced them both. Then they buried the drum again, marking spot with a triad of stacked stones, so faint that only someone seeking would notice. The mallets they returned beside the hide. Oyun kept none. The bargain required leaving the tongue behind for next drought. They returned to camp as twilight parted the storm like a rumpled cloak, revealing saturated hills glowing verdant despite night. Children danced in mud. Women hurried between gers, carrying buckets brimming from newly gushing springs. Some men knelt, pressing faces to puddles. Uyun's mother, Ekatai, ran forward, eyes wild with gratitude. She shouted something. Oyun could only read lips, but the meaning was arms around daughter's shoulders, tears of relief. Oyun smiled, patted her mother's wet hair, then tapped her own ear, shaking head gently. Hecate stiffened, realized, and wept harder. The clan feasted same night on goat broth, flavoured with mint newly resurrected along creek banks. Oyun sat near fire, deciphering conversation by mouth and gesture. Surprisingly, it felt less lonely than she feared. People leaned closer, aware she now inhabited a borderland between sense and myth. They spoke with their eyes, with small touches. Her new silence demanded attention, turning every exchange into ceremony. She realized maybe this was the god's deeper design, memory kept not by words alone, but by deliberate acts of telling. Khadgar approached after broth, offering a leather pouch. She recognized grandmother's old bone awl inside. He said words, slow so she could read. "This will carve stories into hide. We shall make a felt chronicle of today." Oyun traced the awl. She recalled grandmother's voice, faint memory but crisp enough to guide her hand. She nodded. In the weeks that followed, grass exploded emerald. Lambs that had seemed doomed rallied. Wells overflowed their stone rings. The clan postponed migration. Instead, they built new corrals by rivers reborn. At nights, under star fields scrubbed clean by storm, Oyun sat drumming little patterns on her knees, feeling sky echoes' soft acknowledgement. Though she could not hear sheep bleat, she sensed their comfort. Word of rain reached other clans by horseback. Delegations arrived, dazzled by the Targat's revived pasture. Some doubted. Some accused them of hoarding water spirits. Hakan, once skeptic, now carried Oyun's water gourd when she passed. He addressed visitors. "We keep the reins through covenant older than clans. Respect our witness, we will share chronicle with those who aid stewardship." When Oyun walked the ridges, shepherd's crook balanced across shoulders, she felt the stone herd gods beneath her feet like a distant slow drum, one that would surface only when summoned. She practiced. Without mallet, she tapped rhythms against her ribs, memorizing histories. Day clouds returned, hours water climbed. Number of kids born, names of elders gone. She became living ledger. Years later, a fresh drought knifed across the plateau. Oyun, now grown tall, felt the grasses crisp again. She taught the next young drummer, a boy named Altan, the pattern of awakening. Together they climbed to the drum site, its marker stones mossed. Oyun, though still deaf to regular sound, heard the tremor call from below, the gods stirring at expected time. She guided Altan's hands, showing how to negotiate not just for Target, but for all high-stepper kin. She offered goatskin scrolls painted with decades of tale, fulfilling promise of renewed witness. And again rain came. Thus the legend travelled further than any river, of a girl who traded hearing for clouds, of stone herd gods and thunder drums stitched into the land's very muscle, of a drumbeat that measures balance between sky and earth. Among camp's nightly fires, parents tell children that each heartbeat they feel against pillow of grass is Oyun still drumming, recounting them into the world's ledger so that rivers never run dry unnoticed. And whenever thunder growls across the steppe, people pause, placing hands to soil, listening. For embedded beneath wildflowers and sheep trails lie drums waiting for the next brave shepherd to answer back.